Today's presentation is by Brian Banks. Brian Banks is the founder and CEO of KeepTrack. For more than 20 years, Brian has developed software to help companies manage complex business processes.
Well, hello everyone. We're going to talk today about electronic record keeping in the era of FSMA. Another title for this slide might be Moving Beyond Paper, Logs, and Excel. So we've been to and worked with many food processing plants, and this is, even though this is an exaggeration, I know some of you feel like this on some of your work days. So FSMA, it's the law. The Food Safety Modernization Act was signed into law in 2011. One of the primary components that we're going to focus on today is the records review, which has the, we're paraphrasing here, has mandatory records and specifics for verification, accuracy, timeliness, retrievability, and change-proofness. And we've included the link down there at the bottom if this is something that you are unfamiliar with. So mobile systems are a recent possibility for data entry, especially in food processing processes. Some of the things, the technology advancements which have made this possible include relatively low cost and feature-rich phones and tablets, software that pairs with those phones and tablets. They really enable your end users or your folks on the floor to capture the data when and where it occurs. And assuming you're working either outdoors or inside a production facility where water is a factor, there's, again, from a price point perspective, there's been a lot of advancement on these devices. And two of the ratings that you've probably seen and may not be super familiar with that you see on a lot of these devices are IP67 and IP68. And IP68 means you can submerge it, a certain number of meters underwater for a certain duration of time. But basically these mean, even though you shouldn't try it in practice, that these devices are waterproof. So FDA's requirements, they require that any electronic or computerized, as they call it, records must be authentic, accurate, and protected. The organization must be able to provide an accurate copies of those records. The records must be protected for later retrieval. Can't have wide open access. They have to have limitations in terms of who has access, not only to access, but to create those records as well. You have to be able to provide a secure record audit trail, and those records must be, and assume it's going to do everything for you, you still have to be involved and audit the data, make sure that you're following the appropriate regulations. So, as I'm sure many of you know, the most common way of collecting food safety and other related information is on paper. So the benefits of a paper system, paper is a known process, and there's no cost to implement a paper system. Chances are your organization or the organization that you work with is already doing this today on paper. Some of the challenges, though, that are inherent in paper is that paper is easy to falsify. There's actually a term called pencil whipping, which is where individuals will fill out, 5 hourly checks in one sitting. So the data is easy to falsify in the paper system. Paper can't enforce your business rules. I've seen a lot of folks try where they'll make these complex forms and spend, dozens or hundreds of hours building forms, maybe one per product or one per situation. But those paper forms really can't enforce those business rules. Paper doesn't notify anyone up the chain in terms of, in the case of non-compliance, like something is out of spec, too warm, too cold, etc. There's no real-time visibility. So unless you are physically in the same location where the data is being collected and looking at the clipboard they're using, you can't see in real time what is happening on the floor. And one of the most important things is you really can't get any meaningful statistics without what we refer to as post-processing. So the person on the floor or out in the field collects the data, and then what? Well, that information has to be filed, of course, but if you're going to get any meaningful statistics from that, you'd have to do post-processing. You'd have to take the information from that form and re-enter it onto Excel or into some other electronic data source where you can get some sort of statistic. Again, a lot of these things come with especially on paper, a high level of overhead. So why do we care? Why would we ever want to move off of paper for FSMA or other electronic record keeping? Number one, you can identify issues sooner. That could result in better product, fewer issues, fewer lost, lost ingredients, whatever it is your process is. The quicker you can identify an issue, the quicker you can take steps to resolve it. Paper can also result in a huge time or cost savings. We have one customer that gave us a anecdotal story about a 45% increase in their entire plant's throughput after using our product for 2 months. So implementing an electronic record keeping system can bring to light issues, and they may be very easy issues to resolve once you've identified them. And sometimes resolving those issues can give you incredible economies of scale and cost and time savings. Electronic record keeping systems also can create a big reduction in employee effort. We have another customer that reported a 20% increase in QA staff efficiency. And they've also, because their managers are doing everything online and not having to collate and double check and go back to the floor and ask, what is this? I can't read this. Their managers report that they save, 4+ hours every workday just by using this electronic record keeping system. So again, lots of opportunity available to us. The other data points that we mention a lot, and it seems silly, but if you're a food processing or other processing facility that creates a product and sells that product to your customers, and you have competitors, when those customers come to visit you and they see that your facility is using an electronic record keeping system and your peers are still running around with clipboards and pencils, it really is seen as a competitive advantage and may actually result in additional business for your organization. So it seems silly, but these are, there could be some pretty significant tangible benefits from transitioning to an electronic record keeping system. So what we're going to talk about today, without being too focused on any one product or products, we're going to talk about some of the desirable features from a technology standpoint that you should be aware that these features exist when you're shopping around or evaluating electronic record keeping systems. We're going to talk, again, just about some of these technologies, and then we'll wrap it up with a closing statement, and we'll go from there. So, desirable features. It needs to be simple. Taking pictures is huge. The ability to scan barcodes saves time and results in much cleaner data entry, fewer errors. Having a system that's location aware, both indoors and outdoors, so that you can prove that your employees were in where they were supposed to be at the appropriate time. Having a reporting tool that doesn't just give you an Excel export, but is feature rich, and some folks refer to these as BI or business intelligence tools. Collecting that information is only half the picture. You need to be able to report on the information as well. Having an ability to integrate whatever solution you acquire, you need to be able to integrate it with your existing systems, because you don't want yet another data silo, whether it be paper or electronic. Passive presence verification. This is a term we use a lot for being able to prove your employees are in a specific place without having to have somebody supervise them and say, oh yes, I saw this employee at this location at this time. Electronic supervisor sign-off, having the supervisors or giving the supervisors the ability to review dozens or hundreds of transactions, quickly identify any exceptions or things that need follow-up, and then being able to sign off on all those records electronically. And again, doing so in a way which is FSMA compliant. We see that as very important. Change logging. So if anything is modified, whether it be the inputs or somebody logged an incorrect value and then the supervisor went in and changed it later, FSMA requirements say that they have a specific section that talks about how you capture that information in a way that that auditors can tell that that data has been changed and that change was appropriate. Having user configurable inputs where the users or the supervisors can go in and determine how they want to capture data. So if you will, build their forms electronically. Something very simple like having a system that will work even if the internet connection goes down. Can you imagine having an internet-based data collection tool and having your internet connection go down for a day? How would you capture data on the floor? So you need to have a solution that is tolerant for those kind of situations. And then in some cases, depending on the diversity of your workforce, having multiple language support can be very useful as well. So we're gonna do a little bit of a deep dive into a handful of these in the next slides. So user configurability and simplicity. If it's not easy to use, both from an administrative as well as from a worker perspective, it's not going to get used. So whatever solution you implement does really have to be configurable and simple. Administrators should be able to change what data is collected on the fly. Obviously, you need to track those changes so that you can have version control on your documents. But especially in the initial phases when you're still trying to figure out exactly how you're going to collect this data for a given process, not having to go back to a developer and pay a fee and wait a month for a small addition or subtraction to be implemented in your system is critical from our perspective. Having these features lowers the cost of the tool because it is user configurable. It lowers the implementation time because you can configure it to use the same language and terminology and layout that your workers are already familiar with, which again also lowers the resistance to adoption. And back to bullet point number one, if it's not easy to use, if it doesn't get adopted, then you lost time and money on whatever system it is that you're trying to roll out. Another feature, since your data is not going to be stored, in a lot of cases, not going to be stored on site, we recommend a secure cloud-based architecture, one where the data is backed up on a regular basis, not just backed up at the same location, but to multiple locations, because you never know what's going to happen, fire or other situations which could take you offline. So having redundancy in this day and age is not difficult to do from an IT perspective. So just make sure that if you are working with a vendor implementing electronic record keeping system, that you delve into that and make sure that you do have information backed up to multiple locations. On the security side, I'm going to draw your attention to this little blue piece of plastic on the right-hand side. These are authentication keys. These are a little USB stick that you can hand out to key employees. You can plug this into your PC or your laptop, and you can tap on that little golden key button when prompted. And that's just a way of ensuring that the person who logged on with their username and password is the right person. Because as we all know, usernames and passwords occasionally do get out. And if you don't want anyone outside of your organization to have access to your data, something simple like this, which is a $10 or $20 piece of plastic that you can purchase and hand out to key employees, could be the difference between somebody with a simple password having a breach where somebody is accessing your data and not. So again, there's lots of technology, inexpensive and simple to use technology elements that could be taken advantage of to secure your data in the cloud or locally. So a picture is worth 1,000 words. We say that a lot. A lot of times, organizations that we worked with, they're already taking pictures. Their employees are already wandering around, either out in the field or in the plant, taking pictures on their cell phone. But at some point, they need to then associate those pictures to the details. So they're either doing a write-up when they get back to the office, or if we're lucky, back in the office, maybe later on in the day, or they're texting that picture to somebody else. In many of these electronic record-keeping systems, you can integrate pictures into your workflow. So you can make it so that you're capturing data, taking 3 pictures, and then those pictures and the data together in one line are available as part of a report. You can, for example, you can store, using our application as one example, we store our pictures in the cloud with a public link. So when you run a report, the report shows that link. You click on the link, and you bring up the picture. Well, that link, can be exported, can be sent to outsiders, whether they're your customers, your suppliers, and they can click on those same links. They can see those same pictures and respond, respond to whatever is in that picture. Really handy. Our customers probably capture somewhere north of 10,000 pictures every week of various things, whether it's quality or it's human safety or food safety issues in the plant. Pictures of kind of the gold standard of what the product they're creating should be looking like. Pictures are just a really easy piece to roll in. It also gives a lot of value as long as it's something that's easy for the folks on the floor to capture. The barcodes are one of these things that are really easy to roll out, and you can save a lot of time and a lot of difficulty by using them in an effective way. If you're creating a product for sale, it typically has an SKU on it, but internally, barcodes make it really easy to capture traceability data throughout your plant. We've had customers that print it out as part of existing documents, or we'll slap a barcoded sticker on the back of a bill of lading and use that to track that load throughout the facility. We've had customers that create their own complex barcodes that capture, a dozen or more data points related to the source and other information about raw products or finished goods. So barcodes are just one of those things that having a system that can interact with barcodes in a flexible way can add a lot of value, can make the data collection much easier on the employee's side. And then if you're scanning that barcode and it's bringing in details and bringing in data points, you can avoid a lot of typos and mistakes that if somebody's having to enter something by hand, it's always easier to scan a barcode than it is to type it in by hand. If you're talking about an implementation that's not in a plant but outdoors, whether it's in an orchard or a vineyard or a field, having a system, a mobile system that is location aware, can add a lot of value. So users can capture the location, or the system can capture the location of the user at the time of entry. So if you want to know where your employee is, you can preload a series of locations into the system. And if you look at the green dots on the right, this is a subset of a data set where there's thousands of locations. These locations are all preloaded onto their device. They're available even if it's offline, and the users can do turn-by-turn navigation to, in this case, go out to lot 39, which is a location they've never been to before, but the system knows where it is, and the system can take them there. You can integrate what's referred to as geofencing, and geofencing is the user has to be within the following boundaries in order for them to be able to log this transaction. So we could draw a box around lot 39, and you could disable the user from logging any information about lot 39 unless they're standing somewhere in that field. Path tracing, so the blue picture at the left, this is kind of a long-term overlay of employees who have walked through a field for an inspection. So each of those blue lines represents one path an employee walked, and you can actually hover over those data points and see who, when, where, what, any related details. And so depending on what information you're capturing, if field operations are part of your organization's business, there are solutions out there that allow you to capture this data in near real time, and very, very easy for the end users to do, and then easy for you and your team on the admin side to jump in and to make sense of that data, to report on that data over a multi-year period and see trends, make business decisions based on those trends. So it can be a really powerful tool, and the data capture is very easy to do. Again, because you've got a mobile device like a phone or a tablet, and it has GPS built in, and if the software supports it, you can do some pretty neat stuff very quickly. The last piece I want to cover really quick is the low jack concept. If you have equipment such as tractors or other vehicles, you can drop 12 volt or even a battery operated device on these that reports its location via 3G or 4G back to the server, and so you can trace where that equipment is in real time. So that's another piece that it's not a mobile data collection in terms of the phone, but it still gives you the ability to capture data using the mobile network and be able to report on it and get value, not just theft value, but also real time, like how many miles has this particular piece of equipment covered, and why is it doing twice as much as the other pieces of equipment that are doing the same task. That sort of thing. If you're indoors, GPS doesn't work. It doesn't matter if you have windows or not. It's just you're reading data from satellites, and being indoors at any sort of roof negates the effectiveness of GPS. So there's some alternatives you can use to making your systems, or there are systems such as Keep Track that you can roll out that have indoor location-aware functionality. We refer to this again as passive presence verification. So it's passive in that no one's watching them. Then you're verifying their presence. And one way you can do that is with barcodes or QR codes. So you could put a barcode in a specific location in a plant or facility, and the person has to scan that barcode before they can perform the task. If they don't scan the barcode, they can't log the task. So unequivocally that your employee must have been standing in that location at the following time. Otherwise, the system would not have let them log what they did log. Barcode's great, but there's another technology that we use called NFC, or near field communication. This is a inexpensive, it's passive. There's no battery involved, and you can see an example of a purple tag at the right that we give to our customers that you can mount that on a piece of equipment, and if they have a device like a tablet or a phone that has NFC built in, you bump that tag and it says, you are at production line 4. Here are the 3 tasks that you can perform. So using NFC, it's similar to barcode technology, but it's actually even easier for the user to use, especially if it's an environment where things get dirty or wet. They can just bump this plastic tag and prove that they were at that location. We've also done some work with Bluetooth Low Energy, or BLE beacons. And these are little battery-operated devices that you can mount in different locations in the facility, and you can actually triangulate a person's location. So it serves the same function as the NFC, but it's more passive. There's some new technologies that are coming out that are probably worth mentioning and worth keeping an eye on as far as indoor location, being able to identify where someone is without using GPS. There's ultra wideband, or UWB. Right now it's a very high cost, but it's also high precision, so down to about 30 centimeters. You can triangulate where someone is, or they'd have to have a beacon or a device on the person, but you can actually track them down to within a 30 centimeter radius inside an indoor facility, even if there's a lot of equipment and water and other moving parts. So when the price comes down, this becomes more accessible. This would be a neat way of tracking, for example, which area your employees are working in, and you can start doing cost analysis of labor and things like that. LED, there's some technologies that are coming out where built into the lighting, the overhead lighting, you're also getting this same triangulation. Right now, it's being deployed in supermarkets. They're not kind of close to the vest. They're not deploying this. At least I haven't heard of any deployments inside production facilities. Unknown cost, but there's also, because it's using your device's camera, and it's kind of seeing that LED signal, it's actually a relatively high battery usage as well. And then Google has some stuff that they're coming up with as well, where based on the camera looking at equipment in the room, it knows that if it sees this machine at this angle, that you must be standing there. So it's similar technology to the autonomous driving, but it's used to kind of, if you collect enough data inside a facility or inside a building with all the equipment and other items in that building, you should be able to, Google's thing can triangulate where you are based on what the picture looks like and what the angle is. Again, new things not currently being used to our knowledge, but definitely things to be aware of in the future. Thanks for bearing with us. We'll be done. We're almost done. Another feature, reporting. So you can collect all the data, that's great, but you need to be able to make something of that data. You can create issue and exception type reports where I don't want to see the 1,000 transactions that were entered. I want to see the 4 that I need to take action on. You can trend data over time, whether it's temperature or by shift or by employee or by item that you're producing, etc. And these can be really, really valuable. And these types of reports are almost impossible to get if you're starting with a paper-based process. You can have a mobile solution email or text staff in response to events. Out of temperature, email the appropriate people. Human safety issue, food safety issue, there's a hold, email the appropriate people, take immediate action, resolve the issue, and continue production. You can, with systems like ours, you can schedule emailing of PDFs. So, we have a lot of customers that every Monday morning they get a summary of the week before that shows any exceptions, statistics, and it's really nice to have these passive reports coming in. You don't have to log on to check something; it just shows up in your inbox, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, all based on user specification. Third parties as well. Again, having a silo, having a black box solution that doesn't integrate with outsiders can sometimes mean you have to do a lot of additional manual work. So we've created restricted view-only logins to customers, USDA inspectors, other things like that. So with the right system, you can expose subsets of your data directly to outside consumers of that data, so they can see the information they need in real time. They're not having to bug you, and your staff isn't having to compile some report for them on a recurring basis. And if you don't want to give them direct access in, you can also set up those automatically emailed summaries or COAs or whatever the data is that you're trying to push or expose to those third parties. Which comes back to the whole topic of integration. So if you're gonna implement a mobile data collection solution, you definitely want to have that solution be able to integrate. So integrate with your ERP, pushing and pulling product lists and bill of materials. We've seen integration with laboratories, so you can push and pull results from swabs or other inspections. Even being able to tie into plant hardware, so having your machines be able to push their information electronically into your reporting tool that sits behind your mobile data collection solution. So, your human employee collects information, the machine sends information, and you collate those two and graph it and use that to make to see what's going on and to identify issues and make decisions and how to be more efficient. So just some real easy example use cases of how you can use the mobile data collection solution in your operations: hourly, daily, or weekly checks, field inspections, and then being able to again integrate with a third-party lab if it's something where you're actually looking for pathogens or whatnot. Harvest inspection, where you've got maybe the sales team can see in real time what the person who's in the field reviewing the harvest, you can see the sales team can look and say, oh wow, we're getting good quality product or bad quality product, and can make real time changes from the marketing and sales perspective in response to the quality of the product coming in from the field. Being able to do a raw product evaluation, evaluate any defects, Truck tracking, we've got lots of great success stories about being able to track trucks as they move through a facility and identify bottlenecks. Finished product evaluation, whether you're talking about percentages of subcomponents or packaging, label verification, allergen. Again, it depends on the industry, but these are all things that are very, relatively speaking, very easy to do with the right mobile data collection solution. Maintenance and sanitation is another great example. Pre-op, log the information, log the inspections, log the chemical usage, log all this information, and then slice it and dice it using your integrated reporting tool, and start identifying where the problems are, where the bottlenecks are, and use that to increase efficiencies and decrease costs. Why we care, one more time: compliance to regulations, identifying issues sooner, creating huge time and cost savings, reducing your employee effort, and looking great when your customers are coming to visit. These are all very tangible reasons to implement a mobile data collection solution in your operations, so that you can see all these benefits. And in today's world, you're going to need something. You're going to need to move past paper and pencil into something where you're identifying every little nuance of your operations. You need to be able to identify those and take advantage of them, because if regardless of if you don't or not, do or not, your competitors will be taking advantage of those situations, and those that adapt and use these kinds of technologies will have that competitive advantage. So I'll go ahead and read this out loud, tying this back to FSMA. Rather than seeing these additional reporting requirements driven by FDA regulations and customers, because a lot of these new regulations and inspections and whatnot are increasingly being driven by larger customers. Rather than seeing those as a burden, see it as an opportunity, because the companies that do a better job of these processes will be able to leverage that into increased efficiency, throughput, and quality. The right tools implemented correctly will not just ensure regulatory compliance, but will also be a competitive advantage in the marketplace. And again, we've seen that time and time again, and so we do feel very strongly that this is where production needs to move to as soon as possible. Thank you very much for your time. Really enjoyed remotely speaking with you about FSMA and electronic record keeping.
Thanks, Brian. That concludes today's presentation.